Well, the current pandemic has focused an awful lot of attention on something you may have heard of but not known much about, the World Health Organization. That's an international organization that the U.S. has quietly, automatically, unthinkingly spent billions of dollars supporting over the decades, and most of we felt good about it. But now is time to ask the very reasonable question the president is in fact asking: what are we getting for that support? China spends less than half as much as we do supporting the WHO, and it's clear what they get. They get a servile global organization that is abetting their rise to superpower status. It's a pretty good deal for them. The WHO excludes Taiwan from membership solely because Beijing has demanded that they do that. Cruelly, by the way. And from the start of this pandemic, the World Health Organization has done shockingly little to stop the virus from spreading around the world. In fact, when the organization appears in public at all, it seems to be functioning purely as an offshoot of Chinese state media. Tedros Adhanom, who's the director of the World Health Organization, has been there for close to 3 years. He was elected with the support of China over the opposition of the United States. In late January, Tedros was gushing that China had contained coronavirus. In fact, he said, China had set a standard that the rest of the world ought to copy.
The Chinese government is to be congratulated for the extraordinary measures it has taken to contain the outbreak. China is actually setting a new standard for outbreak response, and it's not an exaggeration.
All hail China. Tedros was so impressed by the Chinese government, so confident the coronavirus was defeated, that he attacked other nations for daring to take the racist step of protecting themselves. When the president announced travel restrictions on China in late January, Tedros said that would, quote, have the effect of increasing fear and stigma with little public health benefit, end quote. On February 3rd, he gushed about the Chinese dictator Xi and attacked any notion of slowing down global travel or trade.
I was so impressed in my meeting with President Xi at his detailed knowledge of the outbreak. There is no reason for measures that unnecessarily interfere with international travel and trade.
Well, that's just absolutely disgusting and stupid and violates science and common sense. Tedros was completely wrong. And because he was wrong, coronavirus became a global calamity. 3 weeks ago, as one country after another entered lockdown, Tedros told the world, you should imitate Wuhan.
Wuhan reported no new cases for the first time since the outbreak started. Wuhan provides hope for the rest of the world that even the most severe situation can be turned around.
That's one of the most corrupt displays I think anyone's ever seen on tape. Of course, if other countries wanted to reduce their caseload, they don't want to take the World Health Organization's advice. Just like the CDC in this country, WHO was pushing the absurd claim that face masks somehow don't work and are not useful for containing the coronavirus. China, meanwhile, the country that Tedros never stops praising, did not agree with that. In fact, they were hoarding masks. They were doing it all the way back in January. In fact, you start to wonder how honest World Health Organization was even giving that advice. You also wonder how honest Dr. Tedros was when he warned against accelerating the use of hydroxychloroquine to fight the virus.
Using untested medicines without the right evidence could raise false hope and even do more harm than good.
At this point, it's pretty obvious this guy is trying to hurt people. He runs the World Health Organization, and he's intentionally trying to hurt us. If you wanted an effective anti-coronavirus strategy, you would just do everything that Tedros tells you not to. In fact, that's been a pretty solid position to take for a long time. Before he ran the World Health Organization, Tedros was the health minister of Ethiopia. On 3 separate occasions, that country was ravished by cholera epidemics. Tedros lied about it. He refused to admit it was happening, insisted instead it was just an outbreak of, quote, acute watery diarrhea. Hundreds died in those outbreaks, which are only accurately identified when they spread into neighboring countries. In other words, he lied on behalf of the Ethiopian government, which was worried more about tourism and their reputation than people surviving an epidemic. Then he took over the World Health Organization, and Tedros vowed to crack down on corruption at that organization. That hasn't happened either. WHO still spends $200 million a year flying its staff around the world, often in business. That's something other health organizations ban their staff from doing. Doctors Without Borders would never do something like that. Corruption, dishonesty, cover-up, shilling for authoritarian dictatorships, lying as people die. No wonder Tedros and China are such profound allies. Fortunately, people are wising up to this. Even the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, says the World Health Organization should be open to criticism.
Where were the warning signs? Who was supposed to blow the whistle? The president has asked this question, and I think he's right. The president's answer is the World Health Organization should have been blowing the whistle. I don't know enough to know if that's right or wrong, but I know the question is right.
Yeah, the question is certainly right, and the answer is very obvious. They didn't blow the whistle. People died as a result, and they still get to run around calling themselves the World Health Organization. Why should we support corrupt international organizations like this? That's not a partisan political issue. Funding the WHO has only given us a hostile, dishonest bureaucracy that's directly responsible for spreading this pandemic. We should get out of that organization immediately and only fund health organizations that help people and prevent disease. And by the way, there are a lot of them, just not this one.